9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Stadium Connect North. Today it's a special episode as we have a special guest, Mr. Voldi Way, who is the CEO of WayForward. But before we start doing that, let me introduce you to the panel, as MM2K would say. So first of all, John, how are you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And since we are live, and I don't think we're going to be live afterwards, I'd just like to tell you happy birthday in advance, because I know that it's your birthday in a few days. So I just wanted to let you know.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And then we have MM2K, our good friend here. How are you doing, MM2K?
Great, man. I thought you guys learned your lesson from the last ones. You brought me back. Oh, well. We're gonna have fun today.
Right. Man, but seriously, MM2K, I'm super excited to have you here because Voldi is actually a great Stadia enthusiast. And I was so happy to learn that you were coming for the interview. And what I did is I'm the person who assigned the interview question, and I gave you the hardest one to ask. I gave you all of the Stadia questions. Yeah, I know that you're going to be very excited to ask these questions. It's going to be
absolutely
awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And before we start, I just want to let you guys know that we have a poll. We asked you guys which game from WayForward would you like. Would you like them to come on Stadia first? And we've got Spider Zors, which is a game similar to Contra. We've got River City Girls, which is a sequel to River City Ransom and kind of similar to Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. We've got The Mummy Demastered, which is a Metroidvania, and it's a very good one, I'm going to tell you guys. And then we got Vitamin Connection. It's very hard to compare to games that you guys know, but it's very similar to Kuru Kuru Kururin, which is a Game Boy Advance game, but only Japanese. But anyway, yeah, it's a very cool game. So yeah, put your vote in, and we'll go from there. Now that we got the introduction done, we got one more introduction to show you guys, and here we have the CEO of WayForward, Mr. Voldi Way, aka the Tyrannical Overlord. How are you doing, Voldi?
Hello, I'm doing great. Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, definitely, and you know how much we're excited to have you here. It's really an honor to see you here with us, talk about Stadia, talk about the games that are coming out, and maybe talk about some things coming in the future, but we'll get from there.
Yeah, this is really cool. It's the first time I've actually been on a live video, like streaming podcast. I've been on, regular audio podcasts a couple times and on, Zoom calls, but that's about it. So So yeah, and that intro was really cool too, watching the countdown and everything.
Yeah, it's funny. We get a lot of like we do a lot of interviews. Sometimes we get people who are really not used to interviews at all, and when they come in, they realize, oh wow, these guys had actually production. Like, and they're so nervous and stressed. But then we try to ease them in, and but no, we got every kind of people. So it's really cool to see how people react to our show.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of those people who hasn't been on here, so
Yeah.
feel free to ease me in.
Definitely. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the questions. And first and foremost, we'd like to know more about you. So first of all, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you for the people who doesn't know who you are?
Sure. So let's see. I mean, how far back do you want to go? Should I go?
Well, actually, we'd like to know, when actually WayForward started and all of that. So, of course, you can go as far as you want.
Okay, well, let's see. So going back to like how I got interested in games.
Yeah.
I mean, games in general was my neighbor back in 1979. My neighbor got an Atari 2600, and I think it was around that time. Not sure exactly, but so that's when I just fell in love with games, and I was staying over there every waking moment, and basically until his parents kicked me out. But it wasn't until like the early 80s, like around 82ish, I think, that my best friend got a Commodore 64, and so that's when and back then the operating system was BASIC, right? So you kind of had to learn how to program to do anything. And we had subscribed to Compute Magazine, and we would type in those the games that they would publish where it was just source code and BASIC, and you would type them in, and that's kind of where I got my start in programming. So that's when I fell in love with programming, and then through some just random events, I ended up getting into CAD/CAM software development for sheet metal manufacturing. So that's where I kind of honed my skills, because there was a lot of computer graphics involved in that. And, we had access to high-end equipment at the time, which high-end was like the 286 computer with a 287 math coprocessor. So it was, that's where I learned like, 3D math and then so really my start in games was game development. I mean, I had continued to do it as a hobby, just in my spare time on the side, but it wasn't. It was on my 20th birthday, 1990, March 1st, 1990. I turned 20, and I was thinking, what am I doing with my life? I really want to do games. I thought, well, okay, I'll try to. I'll have a go at it and see what happens, and if it doesn't work out, I can always go out and get a real job. So
yeah.
What, 32 years now, and I haven't had to get a real job, so knock on wood.
That's very good. I am actually a software developer, and I always wondered what would have happened if I would have jumped into video games, but for me the risk was too high. But for some people, it works well for them, and it's so cool to see. So I do envy you guys for actually taking that risk and actually having something out of it. So it's very cool. So how did the studio, formation come about? How was it formed? How did it start?
Well, I wish I could say I had this like grand vision, a master plan, and everything just went according, to that plan. But it really just kind of grew organically. What happened was I was a third partner in my CAD/CAM business, so I sold my ownership to my two partners, and I thought, okay, so I had a little bit of cash, and I thought, okay, I'll make games, and then I realized it's not as easy, I discovered. It's not as easy as it seems. So I quickly squandered that cash, and then I ended up taking on some freelance work developing Super Nintendo games, Sega Genesis,
Oh, cool.
Game Boy Black and White, Game Gear. And then what happened was I was working on Mickey's Ultimate Challenge. This is where I would say it kind of turned more into a business rather than just me.
Yeah.
But I was working on Mickey's Ultimate Challenge for the Super Nintendo, and then later ported to Genesis and Game Boy Black and White and Game Gear. But what happened was the producer, the artists, somehow they either flaked or they bailed. I don't know what happened. Somehow the art fell apart. So I was waiting for art as a programmer, and so I said, well, you know, my girlfriend at the time, her brother was going to Cal Arts, and you know, for those of you who don't know, Cal Arts was a school started by Disney to train animators to work at Disney. So
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Wow.
yeah. So it's one of the leading art schools, you know, at least in the country. And so he introduced me to his friend who was an animator, Rob Buchanan, who I still work with today, actually. And then Rob ended up getting his roommate at the time, Matt Bozon, he's still our creative director. So this was in '93-ish, I think. This was right after, it was right before the earthquake, which was '94, I think. And what happened was, like, towards the end of the project, the earthquake happened. I ended up sleeping on their couch for the last few months of the project. But so I guess we were like the first 3 people, really. But then, you know, as most projects do, it started getting behind. Like, I called on some friends. I called on my friend who had this Commodore 64 that I had, you know, learned programming with. And so, you know, we finished up the game, and then I guess that was kind of the start of it. But it just grew organically since then.
Afterwards, yeah.
Wow,
So you started getting more resources, hiring more people as bigger projects came and things like that, which is very cool. Like, I mean, it grew so much. Like, how many employees now are under WayForward?
About 180.
What?
Wow.
Wow, I had no
awesome.
idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Although it's different now, because before quarantine, I remember we had around 160 or 165 maybe, and they were all, pretty much almost everyone was on site. And then after quarantine, a lot of people moved away. You know, we had, well over a dozen, probably over 20 people move out of the state.
Oh my God.
And then, you know, there's been a lot of turnover, I think, in the games industry, mostly because people can work remotely. Like, you know, places that we wouldn't normally lose people to, like Google or Apple or someone, because they're far away, we now could because of remote work. But then on the flip side, we could then also hire people remote. So right now, I think out of the 180 or so, only 130 some live in California. And then of those, even though our office is still open, only, you know, 30 or so people come in every day, and then another maybe 10 to 15 come in once or twice a week.
Wow.
I mean, it's their choice. Like, you know, it's just a lot of people choose to work from home. So,
Yeah.
So
So
it's very different landscape now.
That's cool to get that option.
Yeah, exactly. And I can imagine there's a lot more movement, a lot more traffic now, a lot of people leaving, a lot of more people that you're hiring just because of that, right? Just because of all the opportunities that's happening around.
Yeah.
So for the people who doesn't know, can you tell us, you know, some of the games that you've worked on? I know you've worked on, you know, there's a lot of games, and there's even a question here from Vivi. He's asking, what's your favorite game you worked on, and why is it DuckTales?
Oh, wow. DuckTales actually was, you know, that is a funny story though with DuckTales, because there was no one. I mean, it's a Disney game. It was a Capcom game, but it was licensed from Disney, so we had to get approval on everything we did from Disney. But since Disney didn't have anyone who really knew that brand anymore, you know, they basically deferred a lot of lot to us. So we were like almost their de facto experts on the DuckTales brand. And our creative director, Matt Bozon, is a huge DuckTales fan, huge. So they just gave him tons of freedom with that. And that one, like, to be honest, I did not think it would be as successful as it was. But it sold like the first month's projections in the first day or something. I mean, it was way more successful than we thought. And, a lot of that is just Capcom was brilliant with their marketing and, but it didn't, we were very proud of it. And it definitely stands out as, a fine achievement of ours, if I may say so.
I can imagine. Yeah. And, do you have any other games that you're like super proud of? I'm sure you're proud of every game, but, some of them that stands out for you.
It's funny. A lot of the games that stand out for me are for production reasons and not even the game itself. Like one of my favorite productions we did is one that no one's probably ever heard of. It was a Lala Loopsy game, and it was because we had like 6 weeks, I think, or maybe eventually 8 weeks. Anyway, it was a really short time frame, but it was like the only game we did that everything went according to plan. Usually things go off the rails for like all kinds of random reasons, but this one somehow, and we turned it down a couple times because we said we can't do a game in 2 months. That's just impossible. And then we did. So
yeah.
Another one is Ping Pals, which we did for the DS. And even though that one actually got more than one review, not just one, I think we got 2 reviews that were 0s out of 10.
Oh my gosh.
But it's still like that was one that was super short. I think initially they gave us 6 weeks and they ended up giving us an extra couple weeks. It was a launch game for the Nintendo DS.
Wow.
And we actually helped find a bug in the Nintendo hardware that they were able to fix, like in the firmware. If we hadn't done that, it was multiplayer and it was a launch game. If we hadn't done that, they might not have found it before they launched. I don't know. So, and also THQ has said it was their highest return on investment project they ever did, but that was partly because it was just a really tiny game for them. But anyway.
Yeah, pretty impressive. I mean, it's still like part of the history of the Nintendo DS, right? Like you actually your name is on helping out, the software of the DS, which is kind of impressive.
Yeah, I think the game itself would have been well received, except for PictoChat ended up becoming bundled. But we had started on this before anyone knew that. Okay. If we had known that was coming out, then neither us or THQ would have even embarked on it. But by the time that was announced, it was too late. So
yeah, it's hard to try to do some unique stuff in the industry just because there's so many ideas out there. It's hard to not copy anyone. We have someone in the chat right now. Someone actually special. It's Gracie Severo, and she's part of the Google team from Germany. John, can you elaborate? What's her job description again? I always forget.
So she's like the head honcho of dealing like with the partners with Stadia.
Mm-hmm.
Helping partner support, getting partners signed up to publish and stuff on Stadia as well. So yeah, it's an honor that she's here in the chat.
And she's asking, do you prefer working from home or the office?
So I tend to come in 2 days a week, usually Mondays and Thursdays. I started with Tuesdays and Thursdays, but now Mondays and Thursdays seem to be a better spread. And then also just whenever there are meetings. So yeah, I mean, there are advantages to both. I think for me, it's more like I get more focused work done at home, but for meetings, it's better in the office.
Yeah, I can imagine. And now I just have one last question from myself, and I really needed to know because I'm really curious. So, in most of your game, you're credited as the Tyrannical Overlord. And I'm wondering, like, what's the story behind this? What does it all mean? You know, like, I've always wondered. Even when I talked to Chris, he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna make you interview the Overlord." I was like, "What?" So can you elaborate on that?
Oh, sure. And sorry about my dog barking in the background. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
that's
you can hear
okay.
No worries at all.
That's fine.
So yeah, it was actually mid 90s, and I should probably find out the exact date at some point, because I've been asked that question a few times. But there was a conference coming up, and I think it might have been the first E3 or something like that, or maybe it was just like a CES. But they were, for the badges, they were asking for a title, and up to that point, we didn't have any titles. Like, we had no need for titles, so we were trying to figure out titles. And Matt Bozon, you know, our creative director, he had kind of introduced us all to the comic book The Tick, you know, which later became a TV show, and you know,
Yeah.
But anyway, there was an issue where it was kind of like a parody of Superman. So there was Clark Oppenheimer, and then the Jimmy Olsen character would call the Perry White character Tyrannical Overlord. And it was one of those like running gags. Like, he's like, "And stop calling me that." And he's like, "Yes, sir, whatever you say, Tyrannical Overlord," you know? And so Matt started calling me that just to be obnoxious, you know?
Right.
You should probably get him on your podcast at some point, because, you know, so he started calling me that. So I thought, well, you know what? They're asking for a title. You know, why not? So I put that down.
Yeah.
It just stuck. I've used it ever since.
It's funny how the name that we're so annoyed of is the one that sticks, right? Like, and it's the one that we end up just always using. So very interesting story. Now I'll know. I mean, the more you learn, right? So that's awesome. So now we're gonna jump into the part where we're going to talk about the new game coming on Stadia, which is Mighty Switch Force Collection, which I have on the Switch, and you know, I've enjoyed it so much. I'm definitely going to buy it again on the Stadia, and I'll be, you know, playing the heck out of it because it's such a fun game. But yeah, I'm going to let John go ahead and carry on with the questions.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna bring up here. We're gonna play the Stadia announced trailer of Mighty Switch Force Collection here while we chat about it a bit, just to give those in the audience who maybe aren't familiar with the game an idea of what it looks like and things like that. So now that we know Mighty Switch Force Collection is announced, it's coming soon to Stadia. Could you maybe tell us, like, I know it's like, can you maybe describe to us, like, what exactly it is, aside from just like a collection of games, and maybe kind of like the story behind it?
Sure. Yeah. So that one, well, and incidentally, you won't have to buy it again on Stadia because we're planning on putting it in Pro. Basically,
oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, we obviously, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, because we obviously have to coordinate everything with Stadia, but ideally all of our games will be coming in on Pro. That's our goal. So if they're okay with that, you know, that's our plan. But
that's awesome.
But the inspiration was, whenever Nintendo, and I say Nintendo because they had the most unique hardware, they would come out with like the dual screen, or, you know, the 3D or whatever. You know, they came out the Wiimotes at the time. And so we always, whenever they would announce it, we would try to design games that took advantage of the hardware. So when the 3DS came out, Matt Bozon, again, our creative director, he said, "Oh, we should make a game that you can only play if you can see in 3D." So originally, there wasn't going to be that kind of graying or dimming of the blocks. But of course, Nintendo, you know, for good reason, made it so there had to be other ways you could see it if you didn't have stereoscopic vision. Otherwise, people with one eye couldn't play it. But the idea was, originally it was supposed to be a game that you could only play if you could see the depth and know what to do with it. So that was the inspiration for it. And yeah, the rest is, we tend to design games from the bottom up. You know, I know some companies have a story that they start with, and then they figure out, okay, based on this story, what would be good gameplay. But we tend to come up with like some mechanics. So that initial block switching mechanic we had working in, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, just to see if it was fun, and then the rest kind of just built from there.
Nice. That's awesome. Wow, that's great news. So could you maybe tell us like how the decision of the concept art and music like came about, like during the development, or like how did you decide to go like with this specific art style and music in the game?
That was all Matt Bozon. He did all the art, and then Jake Kaufman, who was our composer. I mean, he was working on a ton of our games. And I think at the time he was on staff. We typically don't have composers on staff because there's not enough, we don't do enough volume of games to keep a composer busy all the time. But there was I think like maybe a 3-year period that Jake was on staff. I can't remember if it was during that time. But yeah, so Matt and Jake did the music for it.
Amazing music. I love the music in the game.
Yeah, Jake's super talented.
That's awesome. Okay, so we know, so WayForward, you currently have 3 games published on Stadia. Shantae Half Genie Hero Ultimate Edition, Shantae Risky's Revenge Director's Cut, and my personal favorite, Dawn of the Monsters. We know there's that has been announced. There are 2 other upcoming games, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, and obviously the mighty Switch Force collection here. But before we go on, and talk about, upcoming games and whatnot, could you maybe tell us a little bit about it, if you're able to, about, the sales of these games on Stadia, and maybe like what effect Stadia Pro has had on these sales as well?
Sure. Well, I can't go into specific sales figures, but I can say that not only was it very surprised, and it not only did it exceed our expectations, but by a lot. Like, we were thrilled with the performance, especially Pro, because I'm sure you guys know, but most of the cloud platforms, they basically pay like a lump sum, right? So it's like, oh, here's a certain amount of cash to have your game in, Game Pass or whatever. But Stadia did a rev share based on Pro subscribers, and I hope I'm okay saying that. I think that's all public information.
Yeah, that's public information.
So, and the thing is we were so surprised because, like, we still don't know how many Pro subscribers there are, but and we don't know what percentage of them actually played our game. We don't know that. We know the numbers of which, of course, a lot of people did play it, since it was basically free to Pro subscribers. But but we were really surprised at the rev share from it. It was because some of my coworkers who aren't the Stadia enthusiasts that I am, they thought it's not even going to be worth the price of the cost of the port to put it on these systems, but it was. So just for any of you indie developers out there, it's definitely worth porting to Stadia. You won't regret it. The amount of and so far we've only seen. I kind of wish Half Genie Hero had been in it, but we had Risky's Revenge and Dawn of the Monsters. Well, so first off, starting with Risky's Revenge, that one was an old game. Like, I don't even remember when we came out with that, over 10 years ago. And it still did great on Stadia Pro. And then Dawn of the Monsters, that one was the one that really went over the top because it was a day one launch. Actually, pre-day one. It was it came out before the platform.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah.
How easily we forget. Yeah, that was a day before Dater.
Yep.
Yeah, that is awesome. Okay, well, that's great to hear. Like I said, every developer that we talk to always have good things to say about bringing their games in on Stadia Pro and their revenue. So we just want to check in to see how it is with WayForward, and it's fantastic to hear that that some of these games, like, they're exceeding your expectations, and that, plans of future games, you're hoping to launch them, right into Stadia Pro to get that revenue sharing and things like that. A question, again, you might not be able to answer, but just thought we could maybe throw it in here. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. Now, that was originally, I guess, supposed to be launched earlier, but there's been somewhat of a little delay on it. Would you be able to give us a general idea of maybe when can we expect it? Could you say like this year, or?
Yeah, I can. Well, I want to say this year. I'll be very sad if it doesn't come out this year.
Okay.
But we want it out as soon as possible, and
okay.
Again, we do have to work with Stadia to get it in their pro lineup. But yes, hopefully in the next, hopefully definitely this year. I say hopefully just because I don't want to jinx it again. But
right.
Exactly.
Exactly. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and pass on the mic to MM2K here. You can have a chat with Voldi.
All right, Voldi. Hey, thank you for joining us. This is like amazing stuff, and like just to be here with you as going over some of these classic games that you and your company have put together, man. This is all exciting stuff. But I'm here now to test your Stadia enthusiasm, as they say. So question number one, how were you introduced to Stadia and made the ultimate decision to port some of your titles onto the platform?
I was actually invited to a meeting up at Google, and I didn't know what it was about at the time. And then they brought me into this room, and they had me play Tomb Raider. And now they kind of missed an opportunity, because they could have said, "Hey, how do you like this new hardware?" And I would have thought it was great, and then surprised me like, "Surprise! There's no new hardware."
Yeah.
Because it was flawless. Like, I mean, obviously it was at Google headquarters, so it was, zero latency. But man, it was like 4K, beautiful, perfect. So that was how I was actually introduced to Stadia. But I've been a longtime fan of streaming, ever since the On Live came out forever ago.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone has that date, but it's like that's got to be over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I still have like a collection of like Stadia On Live controllers in my drawer. Wow. I thought that they were looking over gaming at the time. And then since then there have been Gaikai, which became PlayStation Now, and Luna and xCloud and all these. So I really truly believe that streaming will be the future. I mean, there are some latency issues. Well, like I think for most of us, we have fast enough internet that we don't notice that, or there's no problem. But I do realize that for it to become more widespread, some of those have to go away. But that will happen with time.
Exactly.
So even before seeing Stadia, I was a longtime fan of streaming. And then I figured when Google threw their head in the ring, like who can handle like internet stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You want someone handling something related to the internet, who better than Google, right?
Exactly.
So let me ask then, is there a specific person or a specific team that takes care of porting the games that you have there for Stadia?
Not one person. We actually have a number of people who have worked on Stadia ports. Although one of our engineers, Edward, has become kind of like the de facto expert, so he's the one everyone goes to. But a number of people have done it, and what happens is now that we have it as part of our internal engine, and also and the Unity games, it's much easier. We just put it in our continuous build server. So basically, anytime a programmer or artist commits a change, it automatically gets built for all the different platforms, including Stadia. And what's nice about that is
oh wow, okay, cool.
And for our games that don't support Stadia, in order to play test them, like for me, I have to download a zip file, extract it, run it, it just takes time. But Stadia, I can just click and be playing it instantly.
Yeah.
So it's so much better when we have developed for Stadia.
Awesome.
So, and then 2K, we got to try to get access to Voldi's Stadia account and get all of these games that are not released yet. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I mean, especially River City Girls. I got to get like River City Ransom was so instrumental to me in the Commodore 64 growing up. Yeah, we got to get access to River City Girls. Get that on the platform as well. So can we get a small hint? I know you hopefully you can tell us, but can we get a small hint of when we should expect Mighty Switch Force collection and Shantae and the Pirates? Well, I think, John, you already asked about Shantae's and the Pirates Curse, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So Mighty, again, I know you may not be able to, and that's fine, but I'm going to try anyway. Would you be able to tell us when we could expect Mighty Switch Force collection?
I mean, we are trying for both of them this year, and the engineer who's working on it right after Curse. So Curse will definitely come first, and then Mighty Switch will come after that. And the reason is because Mighty Switch Force Collection has multiplayer. It takes more work, so we figured, getting Pirates Curse out will be easier. So that's the only reason it's coming out first, and then I expect. Knowing him, that getting Mighty Switch Force Collection working will be probably, to get the base game working, like a matter of days. To get the multiplayer, who knows? But hopefully not that long, because again, Google solves that, since everything is running on their server, it makes multiplayer development so much easier, right? Like normally you have to handle things like latency, and then do you have rollback and what happens if players drop and stuff like this. But on Stadia, you don't have that issue because the cloud latency is like as close to zero as you can get, and they don't have all those connection issues that we have. So so I expect it'll be relatively easy, but but then again, we thought it would be out already. So
no, that makes perfect sense. Now, let me ask, what has been your experience working with Google and Stadia?
Oh, they've been great. I mean, super supportive, very easy to get in contact with. I mean, sometimes with platforms, they're all busy, and it's hard to get a response. But Google's just very really on the ball. So yeah, they've been great to work with, and me personally, I'm a Stadia enthusiast just because of the freedom of where you can play it. Because I have Chromecasts all over my house, basically. So I can play from my PC. I can take it on the go on my phone. I can play upstairs. Like I'll play games with my wife on the Stadia in her bedroom, like Star Wars Fallen Order. Just because we can play. Just on the bedroom TV. And the mobile, I don't play that as much, but I do sometimes, like if I'm waiting for my kids, like somewhere at, they're in, their martial arts class or something, and I'm in the car, I can just play on my phone. And it's amazing, even over a cellular connection. Like I saved some clips of myself playing Cyberpunk 2077, which will bring most platforms to its knees. And and I have clips of me playing it on my cell phone over cellular data. It's surprisingly playable. So
yeah. Hey, Voldi, what one of the coolest things I like to do as a spouse, when it's my turn to drive somewhere, I'll tell my wife, "Oh no, my carpal tunnel is acting up again," and then I'll just sit in the passenger seat and pull out some Madden, while she's already on the highway and she can't stop the car. You know what I mean? So yeah, and the 4G, like I can only get 4G in a lot of places that we travel to. It's still flawless in a lot of ways, very few hiccups. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
I use that. I was
ahead.
at AT&T store, and I'm a Google Fi subscriber, but I was at the AT&T store, and the tech there was trying to convince me that AT&T 5G was better than Google Fi. So just to like kind of flex, I brought out Cyberpunk 2077 and showed him.
That's great. That's great.
Gosh, that's awesome.
Let me continue asking. Are there plans on getting more titles published on the platform River City Girls?
Oh my God, Spider Stars.
Yeah, exactly.
There aren't specifically yet, but we would like to. I would love all of our games to be on Stadia. So I don't know about the first one at this point, but we are working on River City Girls 2. And so right now, we were partnered with Arc System Works on that. So we kind of need to work things out with them. But that would be so it won't be available at launch, but that's something we would like to come out with after that.
Yeah.
Again, I can't promise anything yet, but I would love it to be on Stadia because, like I said, I would love our whole back catalog to come to Stadia at some point if possible.
So let me throw this in there, an extra question. So what we often do in the community, and we found success, is we have various people, shout out to Ralph Haley if they're in the chat, or Cody Maloney and others, who they'll go to different publishers and say, hey, look, we really want to see this game, and they'll coordinate with the developers and possibly work on a way of bringing that in. Do you think that's something that would be helpful to the cause, or it's just a matter of time? We got to wait till this current batch is done and then we can progress from there?
Well, the easiest games for us to port are the ones currently in development. The farther back they go in time, sometimes, like for example with Unity, if we have to upgrade the version of Unity, there's always hiccups. It's never a flawless,
right? Yeah.
Okay.
So, but there's maybe you guys know of some people, or maybe this is kind of what you're referring to. But if there are some like porting houses that we could just throw it because once we get too busy, we don't always get a chance to do it, especially our back catalog games. But but if there was like a porting house where we could say, hey, if you guys want to port this to Stadia, we can, either
actually
hire you to port it or.
I'm sorry, not to cut. Yeah, actually, I don't know if Bloody's watching. I think he was watching the show, but we do know some other porting houses like at Mantis Games, and they're specialists with Unity. So we could talk definitely after the show and probably get you guys connected and see if that's something that'll work for you.
Good idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah,
awesome.
I love it.
Oh man, River City Girls. So
it doesn't even have to be number 2 right away. Just
exactly,
with the first one. We're not picky. We'd love it. It doesn't even have to be on Stadia Pro. It'd be awesome on Pro, but
Well, Voldi's team, they make a bunch of great stuff. You know what I mean? But it's something special, right, Voldi, about the Commodore 64. It was like so unique. And it kind of is a standout legacy platform for me. And when I saw River City Ransom decades ago, like it was transformative for me. You know what I mean? So I just, anything that's a sequel or a prequel or an equal to that game, I'm just all for it. You know what I mean? So
cool. Yeah. I think we've actually gotten started to get a reputation for revamping or revitalizing old, not old, classic.
Yes.
And it might partly be because like we've been around long enough that we remember when they weren't classic, when they were actually
exactly.
Like Double Dragon or Boy and His Blob or DuckTales. So I guess that's kind of where we are now. It's fun for us to take a game that we loved playing growing up, and then kind of revamp it for the modern generation gamer.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Great
like you
stuff.
guys did a fantastic job, Contra 4.
Yeah.
Beautiful, like bringing
Yeah.
that essence of the classic Contra games. Like, oh my gosh, it's
Speaking
like,
of which, someone had a question. Let me get it here.
Oh yeah, there's a few questions
Related,
in there. I know.
yeah, related to Contra 4. So, Robotic Richardson says, WayForward's Contra 4 on the DS is an absolute classic. What are the classic franchise would WayForward like to take on and make new games for?
Oh,
I mean, yeah, that's kind of
probably
hard
like
to-
all of them. There's so many. I mean, and and we've done pitches for some, obviously Castlevania, Metroid. We've done pitches throughout the years. I mean, those like, wow, I don't want to get in trouble. So
yeah, right,
yeah.
I understand.
Please don't. Yeah.
Not a Metroid or a Castlevania game. I mean, we got to work on Bloodstained, so that was
wow,
Castlevania,
amazing.
you know.
Yeah, that's
Close as we could
fantastic.
Mhm.
Yep.
All right. One last question for me, Voldi, and then I'll turn it back over to. Is this going back to John? No, this is going back to Ninja. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, are you allowed to talk about the game coming to pro?
Oh, that was already answered, I think.
Oh, was that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. Well, then I guess I'm done torturing you. But thank you so much, Voldi. I appreciate it. It was definitely an honor. And I will turn it back to Ninja.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, thanks. So before I jump to my questions related to Stadia, I've seen a lot of people ask that. But Voldi, are you familiar with the new technology called low change porting for Stadia?
No.
Okay, so people were wondering because right now it's on beta. I don't think like everyone is allowed to use it, but it's kind of a way to port Windows game straight to Stadia without the need to like translate it into like Vulkan or anything like that. It's just like a just kind of like a translator. And yeah, they're working on that, and people like to learn, if it's been used yet or not, because it's a new technology that we can't wait to see, someone use. So hopefully you get your hands on that, and maybe it's going to make it easier to port some of the older titles that you have in your library.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I feel like a failure as a Stadia enthusiast, not knowing about that. That could be huge because I mean, we have games on Amazon Luna and xCloud, and we had games on GameSpy, and we have some on EA Origins, streaming. And the part of the reason is because they make it so easy to port. You basically just take your PC build, and then give it to them, and it works, right? And so Stadia does require a little more effort. If we had a way to basically just take the PC version, then I can't imagine why we couldn't do a lot more games on Stadia, because it's really the port to Vulkan that takes time, and the ones built in our internal engine are a little bit easier because we control that 100%. The ones in Unity are a little harder because we have to upgrade Unity, which, like I said, doesn't always go smoothly.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there was a way to just take a PC build, that could be huge. I'll have to look into that. So it's called low change ordering. What was it called?
Yeah. Low change porting and
low change porting. That makes more sense.
Yeah. So, pardon my French. Yeah.
Literally.
Vivi here says that low change porting will come to everyone, but it's limited to Wired, Handy Game, Saber, Steel Wool, Legacy Game, Paradox, Team 17, and 2 more. So basically, some people are partnering up just to the beta testing of this new technology. So yeah, hopefully you can get your hands on it at some point. Maybe you can get a hold with the Stadia devs, and maybe they can help you out with that technology for sure. So all right, so let's jump back to the questions. We got some last few questions, just digging deeper into the port for Mighty Switch Force, which is actually the first game I ever purchased on the eShop on the 3DS. It was I think it was on sale. It was one of the cheapest game at the time, and I told myself, why not? And I had so much fun. But what we have for questions here is, do you know what the resolution and the frame rate will be on Stadia yet?
Well, I would imagine, I mean, like I said, our engineer hasn't gone to that, but it should be the same as the other platforms, which is 1080p. So it wouldn't be, we wouldn't have a 4K version other than upscaled. So it's effectively 1080p, but it should be 60 frames a second, 1080p.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And it makes sense because, 2D games usually doesn't really matter if it's 4K or pixelated games, but
right.
Well, I guess the remastered of the first one is not really pixelated; it's more like of a cartoon animation. But anyway, I digress. Will there be achievements in the game?
Yeah, that's the plan. So
Awesome.
we plan to have achievements supported. We want the full experience, basically. We don't want it to be any less than what's on the other platforms.
Yeah, definitely. And since I've played it on Switch, I have no idea what the achievements are. So it's going to be cool to re-experience the game with the achievements for sure. So I'm assuming that mouse and keyboard and controller will be supported for the game.
Yeah. I believe that's a Stadia requirement. It's interesting. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I think there's just one game that doesn't support mouse and keyboard, but it's just because it was removed later on. But I think you're right. It's probably a mandatory thing because all the game has it so far. Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges about Stadia is because it supports, and this isn't a big challenge, but it does, since they do support all the different controllers, we need to be able to support that if they hot swap and they switch from an Xbox to a PS4 controller, like in the middle of the game or something. Now, fortunately, they do also provide a bunch of tools to provide icons, so we can switch it from the Xbox buttons to the PlayStation buttons and things like that. So I just remember that, when we were doing our first port, it was like, oh, wow, okay, we have to support all these different controls and stuff like that. I think remapping was required.
You have to put like the image of the controller from depending on the platform too, right? Which is
right. Yeah. Which incidentally, Steam has that too, and they have some tools to help, and Stadia provides tools. So they do really help you out. When you're it's unique from other platforms like PlayStation or Xbox where you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, Interesting. Nice. Yeah. And the last question that I have is, Stadia has some features. They got cool things that you can do, like the state share. You can do like direct streaming, and you can do. I'm having a
crowd play.
Crowd play, yeah, crowd control and all that. So, will there be any Stadia specific features for the game?
So we don't have any plan for these two. That's something that I would love us to incorporate in the future because they do have some really cool features there. Since these ones are basically our back catalog, we don't have there. I think it's something we'd want to design into it from the start. So we don't have any plans for it, especially also being as late as we are getting those on there. We just kind of want to get it out there.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe one day Stadia could maybe help fund a project and have a Stadia exclusive game with some of these features. It'd be pretty cool. So let's hope that happens one day.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's all the questions we had as the presenters. But now, if you have a little bit more time, Voldi, we're going to open the chat and see if the chat has any questions for you. We don't want to take too much of your time, but if you're still available, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have a question for you guys. I because you probably know, and I'm sure I could research this more, but I figure I'm talking to the experts, so I will ask. So I know Stadia is kind of leaning into their embedded platform support. Like certain TVs are coming out with Stadia built in and stuff like that, and which, in my opinion, could be a really smart move.
Yep.
You know, because that's basically that's going to expose a lot more people to Stadia. You know, if it's like built into their TVs. But do you know anything about that or anything? I don't know if you've covered this on your previous podcasts.
Yeah, I'm gonna let John or MM2K answer this one because I have talked a lot, but I know these guys have some good insight on that.
Yeah. No, well, we know like LG has support for their 2020 and above model TVs. You know, Samsung's coming out just in a couple of days, the Samsung Gaming Hub, which will feature Stadia and other cloud platforms in there. And that is just going to launch on with this year's TVs. But they're going to work on probably it'd be like the last couple of years as well. MM2K, besides LG, we know there's some other Android TV.
Yeah, there's definitely Android TVs, anything that can take advantage of PWA, meaning if Chrome browser is embedded somewhere in that Android TV, you go to stadia.com and then that progressive web app connection will allow you to play on there. I know I think I had a Sony TV or a Samsung TV actually that had like a Chrome app embroiled in it, and then I played some Stadia on that. So yeah, there's different possibilities because of the Android TV embedding, but the official embedded TVs right now are LG, the 2020s as John said, and then the Samsung TVs.
There's also the TCL, right? That's going to implement.
Now, I think the TCLs are no. You know, you may know better than me. I think the TCLs are the ones with the Android TV. They might be coming directly embedded in TCLs, which would be fantastic as well. But
I can't remember. Yeah, I remember they mentioned about implementing Stadia, but I don't remember exactly if it was part of Android or not. So that's good. Yeah. Also, Voldi, just as a side note, we're seeing a lot of hints towards the expansion of other countries. So we might be starting to see a lot more countries with Stadia being open to them. So what's nice about that is that we'll be seeing like a big surge of new players coming in, which is going to help out with some of your games for sure to get more revenue out of it.
Yeah, no, that's what it seems like to me. It's like, I mean, I hear people, saying, "Oh, Stadia is dead," but it seems like they're really, it's just expanding, and especially with these. But betting it in TVs, I mean, that seems like a genius move on their part.
You're right, because there's just no hints of them stopping. Like all we hear is just little hints here and there of the coming future. And I mean, it seems like they still have some plans towards the coming years. So, but it's just, it's just the general public who's just not informed properly onto what's happening.
One thing we always got to remember is that a lot of these newer gamers, they grew up with PlayStation a couple of decades into this. So they don't understand the part of relationship building up your platform. They don't remember the hard times that Xbox or PlayStation went through. They woke up to, Grand Theft Auto being on all the platforms. They don't understand this grooming part. So, I mean, the way I see it is it looks like that, they're reshifting their focus to get more of a footprint. They're taking advantage of these earlier years, I think, in a smarter way. Does it cause, for there to be laws at times like right now? Maybe so, but I think what they're doing is laying brick by brick to come up with a stronger foundation in the long run.
Yeah. And I see Stadia Adventure here. For some reason, forgive me, I don't know why I've lost control to be able to highlight things here. Stadia Adventure mentions, he says, I play natively on an LG, and 7 out of the 10 the world's top TV brands support Stadia 2022 and going forward. So that is like you mentioned, that's a great entry point in there, because people put on the TV, they see the Stadia app there, hey, let's find out what's the Stadia thing about, and it's just you get into so many more homes here because
Yeah.
Very many people, not everybody have a TV, but the vast majority of people do have TVs and things like that. So it's just another entry point.
And actually, just to throw out there real quick, Vivi put out a great post where he has like a full list of the TVs in case Voldi is interested. Yeah. He has it right here in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Vivi,
I wasn't expecting all that.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Vivi.
Yeah, there's awesome. Quite a few. Yeah, so I guess what we'll do here is, if there's anybody in the chat, if you have a question, go ahead and just put your question in the chat now, in front of it, so that we can see it here. Do hashtag question, and that way we can ask Voldi here and maybe pick his brain a little bit longer here.
Yeah.
While we're building up the chat, can I ask Voldi one question, one off-topic question?
No.
No, yeah. I know I'm getting out of control. Voldi, what just out of curiosity, what was your favorite game on the Commodore 64? I can't talk to a lot of people about this, so I got to take the opportunity now.
Oh gosh. Well, there was let's see, Impossible Mission was on there.
Yeah, that was amazing because it actually had voice, right? Like, you're blown away by the voice. You're like, holy
it was like,
crap! Yeah,
it was like, I forgot exactly what it said, but it was something like "stay forever," but it was in that like stay a while, stay forever,
stay forever.
Yeah, it's crazy. Here we have a question from PSX Cloud, Mr. Fletch. He's asking, what's the Stadia hardware like in terms of power? Do you find it powerful enough?
Oh yes, it's so I would say it's like a super high-end PC, which it is, except for they don't currently support ray tracing. Although maybe they will. In fact, do you guys know if they're going to add ray tracing support?
We don't know yet.
Officially.
The graphics card is, oh man, I can't remember. It's similar to maybe like the last generation of graphics card, not like the RTX 3080 and stuff. But
there's a lot of software-based ray tracing talked about with the Vulkan APIs, but we haven't heard anything official about Stadia support of them. Yeah,
but it makes it for porting. It's actually really nice because we don't have to worry about speed. It's generally really fast. It's it's like, so some hardware like porting to the Switch. There's usually optimization involved, but porting to Stadia and the best thing is their load times. Their file system.
Oh my gosh!
Ridiculously fast.
That's what I love about it, and that's what blew me away when I first started it. I started Doom, and Doom was a game I was playing a lot on PS4, and when I started it up, I was like, what the heck is that? I wasn't familiar with it, and Stadia came out before the PlayStation 5, so it's the first time you experience this kind of loading even before the current generation that we're in, which is awesome.
Yep. And then I remember playing Cyberpunk and on that, when it first came out, and everyone was complaining that it was bringing their PlayStation 4 to its knees, or their Xbox One. And then it was running flawlessly, on Stadia. So
yeah, exactly. These server blades must have been burning on that on that month. Now, Vivi has some silly questions. I'm just going to show them. But he's asking, what is the most anticipated upcoming game that's not being released by WayForward? And he's asking, Oh, if you want to answer that, I mean, you seem to have oops. I'll put it back on here.
Gosh, I just why am I blanking? It's the Rocksteady game.
Batman.
No, it's not. It's not in the Batman. It's the Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad game, I think, coming out. If it's as good as like the other Arkham games, then I think that one will be really nice. I don't know. I think that's coming out next year.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that one coming to Stadia?
Not that
it hasn't been announced.
The only thing that we can speculate on is that Batman Arkham Knight is on the stream.
The immersive stream.
Immersive stream. Yeah. So that's the only hint that we have that it could be coming to Stadia, but really nothing solid. unfortunately.
Yeah, because I loved all the Arkham games, so especially the first two. So hopefully that one maintains that level of quality.
Yeah. So I guess this was a serious question.
Oh, and Fallen Order 2. They recently announced that one because Star Wars Fallen Order was amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the one that my wife and I just started playing again on Stadia since the Obi-Wan Kenobi show came out. And now they announced that Star Wars Fallen Order 2, so that one I'm looking forward to as well.
They're killing it with their games. Like they keep Star Wars. I think a Lego Star Wars just came out. Then they got 3 new games announced, and yeah, they just keep coming. So hopefully we'll see them on Stadia also.
Yeah.
So maybe usually ask silly questions. So that's why I thought this was a silly question, but I guess it was a good one. This question though, what is your favorite NDA topic and why?
You mean the favorite topic that I can't say anything about?
Exactly.
That's the old Google special.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So here we have a cool question from Stadia Adventure. He's asking, if you could imagine a game that utilized cloud computing in its fullest sense, so Ubisoft Scalar, for example, what game would you design?
That's a very good question, but I think it's super relevant because cloud gaming, I think for cloud gaming to really, for people to really appreciate it, there's going to have to be a game that comes out that can't be done on individual hardware. Not even the highest end PCs could run it. Something that could only be done on Google servers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I have thought about it seems like you'd want something super multiplayer, but all in one scene. Maybe the Lord of the Rings movies, where they have 100,000 people all playing in this giant scene.
Yes.
And then or something like that. Something that would be really tough to pull off on any other environment. So I don't have a specific design, but I think something like that.
It's funny that you say that because there's actually a game that tried that. I can't remember the name. Maybe it's something Scavenger. I can't, or it's just Scavenger, but it actually failed. So they did some demos and tried to, we saw a bunch of people together, thousands of people just playing, and it worked very well. But I guess the idea or the publicity or something just didn't work out, right? But hopefully we can see it actually being successful because it's an amazing idea. If we could just get something that could run this a powerful environment like that, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, or maybe something like an RTS instead of an MMO, kind of like an RTS where you command troops, right? And you send in your 10,000 troops into battle, but then you could zoom in and watch the close-up action, or maybe take over one of the individual troops. Something like that, and you zoom in and you see them all in their ray trace glory. And then you zoom back out and you see 10,000 of them all.
Without rendering, right? It would already be rendered. You don't even need to worry about that. That'd be so
smooth.
Cool. Yeah. We got Simpleton here asking, what advice would you give to a developer who is interested in publishing their games on Stadia?
Oh gosh, I would say just reach out. I mean, of all the platforms, we have great relationships with all the platforms. But we've been around for a while, so we've had time to build up, our relationships with them. But Stadia is they seem super open and super eager to help developers. So just reach out to them.
Would you have?
Actually, I'm curious. Have you tried and failed, or have you just not tried yet to reach out? Because I think they'd be very responsive.
Simpleton, I think it's because there's a lot of people in the community who's trying to help out developers who's trying to do these kind of things. So I think Simpleton is just trying to know what to do if there's a developer reaching for help on that.
Yeah, to give advice and things like that, because like Ninja said, there's always somebody reaching out. Oh, we see this indie game. It looks cool. Have you ever considered to bring it to Stadia? And most recently, there's a studio, 314 Arts, that's out of Germany, and we actually interviewed them. Someone from the Stadia community saw their game. It was headed to a Kickstarter, and they said, "Oh, would you consider to bring it to Stadia?" And they were like, "What Stadia?" And then the community latched on, and literally when we were talking to them, they said like their head was spinning because like just 24 hours ago, they had no idea what Stadia was, and they see hundreds of people from the community showing their support. And, a month and a half, 2 months later, they're now signed up and they've been approved as a developer for Stadia. And they're planning on bringing their game to Stadia now, all because of outreach from the community, and they had no idea what it was before. And now it's just like, okay, yeah, we know what Stadia is. The community is so passionate, and, they're now a developer. So it was pretty awesome to see that happen.
I'd like to also expand on this question because I'm actually, me and John, we're trying to help out a developer trying to put his game on Pro, actually, because he says that it's the only way that he could maybe like make a profit compared to how much time he'd take to make the port. So I'm wondering, like, do you have any advice on how to have their game come on Pro?
I think, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this too, but I really think Google Stadia should lean into Pro as it's all Pro. Basically, you're a subscriber or you're not. And it kind of like Netflix, right? They don't have games that you can buy a la carte. It seems a little weird to have games that you can buy a la carte and then also get included in Pro. I mean, to be fair, I bought a lot of games a la carte on Stadia. I brought Marvel's Avengers, I played that all the way through on Stadia, and of course the Tomb Raiders and Phoenix Rising because of the demos. See, they lured me in with that like free demo they did, and then Star Wars Fallen Order and a bunch of other games, but Doom, but. What was my point before I sidetracked myself? Oh yes, Pro. I think everything should be Pro. I think it should just be you subscribe and you get all the games, and everything should be Pro. And then you won't have to worry about it. Like I do realize that might be a struggle for them to get some of the bigger games in. But maybe they just pay some cash, kind of like what the other platforms do, where they're like, okay, for you, Ubisoft or whatever, we're just going to pay you, X amount of dollars to get it into Pro. But then they should let basically any indie developers, obviously if it passes their test, but pretty much any indie developer should be allowed to go into Pro. That's my opinion. And I know right now it's kind of metered out, which makes it better revenue, so like obviously if there were 50 new games a month coming out on Pro, it would dilute the revenue. There is that. But it would also bring a lot of people to the platform. I mean, I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. Like, imagine if they just basically accepted any indie game and it was like, and there were 100 new games a month. What do you think would happen?
I think I think you're absolutely right as far as the indie games are concerned. We're seeing a lot of indie developers just see so much success. Great games are coming to the platform along with yours, and it's becoming worth their while. I think where the struggle is, like how you perfectly illustrated, is with the bigger games. Like, I love being able to have Resident Evil, buy it, and just keep it in my catalog and not have worry about it being swapped out. You know what I mean? Or it ever leaving. So I like them. I like the a la carte model for like the bigger games, because I imagine this, just knowing some of the how the Game Pass deals work, like that lump sum of money that Microsoft negotiates is also taken into consideration that, hey, we can still get some big a la carte purchases as well. That can't happen on Stadia right now. So the amount of money that I would imagine Stadia would have to pay would probably be 100 times that. You know what I mean? So I'm with you as far as like the indie titles. let the other games be a la carte, and then I like Ubisoft. I like the options. Me personally, I just like the options. But I do agree with you that Stadia Pro, which eventually could be a great thing for everything, but it's just a great way to get these indie games in there, so and get people exposed to them. So I just think that's a great thing altogether.
Yeah, and I would argue that the Stadia would have to pay less than some of the other platforms because it's not competitive, or it's not as competitive yet. Maybe, hopefully, eventually it will be. But for example, like if Microsoft wants to buy one of our games to be in Game Pass instead of like just a la carte, we know it's going to cannibalize our a la carte sales, right? So we have to factor that in. Yeah. But if Google was to come along, in theory, they wouldn't have to pay as much because it's not necessarily going to affect our other sales. So it's all extra. It's all bonus, right? Yeah. It's not like it's going to cannibalize.
That is a great argument. Yeah. And it would take the savvy PR people to put that out there. Yeah. I mean, that is a great argument as well.
I think, we can see that Stadia is starting now to lean more into pro. There's like 50 some odd games that are claimable. Like if someone was just to sign up today for Stadia Pro, there's over 50 games, that you could claim. And of course, once they leave pro, as long as you've claimed them, you still have access to them to be able to play. So that's one of the big things, with Game Pass and stuff like that. Once it leaves the service, then you don't, it also leaves your library as well. I don't think they're at the point now, in my honest opinion, maybe in probably 3 to 5 years, where they could be in that point where they say, where there's more users, that cloud gaming's more accepted, where they can negotiate those types of deal. But I think I'm along with like MM2K as well, as like still giving people the options. Like, sure, it's in pro here, or if you don't want to subscribe, there's still people that want to just buy, piecemeal here and there. I think it's great that you still have that option to do it as well. Just because, people like to do that as well. I don't want to have to subscribe to pro. I want to just buy this one particular game, focus on it, and be done with. So I think, in the coming years, we'll see that probably all sort out, and it goes what it's doing. But I just think at this point, I think choice is still the best option until people get used to and familiar and accept cloud gaming.
Well, what do you think if they did something more like Game Pass, where it is a limited time, it's in there for a year or 2 years or whatever, a longer time, and then when it leaves, like Microsoft will give you an option to buy it, usually at a discount before it leaves, right? So you're right. It makes sense, John, to keep it a la carte as well, because why not? Like, it doesn't hurt to have them a la carte, even if not many people buy them. It doesn't hurt to have them there, and then you can do these promotions, because then, like, if they actually left pro, because right now, like you said, once you redeem it, you have it forever. Right. But if it was more like Game Pass, where you don't, and then there was a chance to maybe upsell someone, like if they really liked it, they'll pay. They get it for half off or something, but they can then keep it in the library. Or it gives you a chance to recycle it later. It's like, okay, it was in pro for 6 months or 1 month even, or 2 months. And then it comes back a year later, and now it's in pro for another month. What do you think about if they went to that model?
Well, okay, so here, I still think that's a possibility. But to me right now, no. Just because there's not enough people that are willing to accept cloud gaming. Maybe once it gets more popular, 5-7 years out, they could do that, because then they've got that user base behind them. They've got some muscle to say, okay, this is what we're doing now. What they're in is like just trying to get as many people to at least give it a try and try to attract it, people to the platform. So I think we could see that potentially in the future, but it's still a couple years away.
When it becomes more mainstream. Yeah, I mean, just a couple of things to think of on that note, which they're all great ideas. And see, we're all enthusiasts of cloud gaming, so we look at everybody else and be like, "Why won't you try it?" But everyone else just has these preconceived notions, all these myths, and lava's going to shoot from the bottom of your house if you try cloud, all this crazy stuff, right? So I think two things underscore that. One, there's a study out of Germany. I think they're from the DEX group, where they asked a bunch of people, like, what do you think about cloud gaming? And they find out that 25% don't even know that it exists. And the other 75% think it's the boogeyman. You know what I mean? And they haven't even tried it. Yeah. So then you couple that with the fact that even studio makers like Amazon, I mean, they got some great noteworthy games that got a lot of attention. New World and Lost Ark. They won't even put them in their cloud service. Why? Because they were big budget games. They put a lot of money in them, and they know that because it's only a 1% business right now, that if they put it in that subscription model, it's going to devalue their return. And I think that's what a lot of big publishers are thinking. Even though what you're saying theoretically, Voldi, is absolutely correct. Like the a la carte purchases aren't going to be that great anyway, but big developers are thinking, no, this is my premium car, this is my Mona Lisa. I'm not going to put this in here for, you know what I mean? So,
and then there's a lot of people out there too that say gaming subscriptions are the death of gaming, right? So you've got two things against you: cloud gaming and also subscription based. So then they're saying, because I know when they first announced the revenue sharing, back, I think, July 2021.
Oh yeah,
there were tweets out on Twitter. Oh my God, Google's going to kill the gaming industry. It's just people that don't take the time to fully understand and comprehend of what's being told. It's they just don't take the time to figure it out. So I don't think they're ready for
we're like a peculiar few, and we can see into the future where everyone else is just stuck in the first 5 minutes of now. So
they can't see past their monitor screen, right?
Exactly. They're 3090s, and
But if they look at the music industry, and then also TV shows and movies, I mean, look at how music now. I mean, I guess you can still buy it a la carte, or maybe I'm an oddball, but it seems like most people just listen on Pandora or Spotify or Google Music or Apple Music or Amazon Music. You don't really think about buying individual music as much.
I honestly don't know where to buy music digitally. I don't even know.
And TV shows, of course. I'll bet if you polled people, most of the shows and movies they watch are on something like Netflix,
right?
Or, HBO Max or something. So, it seems logical that games will follow eventually, whether that's 5 to 7 years or 2 to 3 years. I always tend to be overly optimistic with my projection. So I think, John, you're probably right with your 5 to 7 year prediction.
Yeah. But I mean, it better to be at this point, I think better to be safe than sorry. I would love it to be 2 to 3 years, but probably realistically, it's going to be that further out projection, just because of seeing people, like you said, it's accepted now, streaming your movies, your music, and things like that. And this is something I know we kind of touched upon in our pre-meeting yesterday. It's like that generational shift of, in the next couple of years, you're going to have a whole new generation of people that they don't even know about. You used to be able to buy it on records or CDs or VHS, DVDs, Blu-rays, and things like that. I mean, I think those physical mediums will probably always exist in some capacity, but for the majority, it's just going to take that time for the acceptance. And I think also too, Voldi, what you said is if a game comes out that is so awesome, it's done on the cloud, and everyone's just holy mackerel, this is awesome. Now I know what you're talking about. That will turn a lot of heads. We know, like you were mentioning too, you were a backer of VR, right? There's still that misconception. There's more acceptance of it now, and if people actually try it, they can see how cool and innovative it is. But there's still those people that won't even give cloud gaming the time of day. They'll just say, oh, it's too much lag, I'm not so and so, and it's garbage in this. And meanwhile, you say, well, have you tried it? Well, no. I've never tried it. I don't have fast enough internet. Well, okay, so you just need a stable connection is your main thing. And yes, with Stadia 720p, you need 10 megabit. And then what is it? 4K is 35 megabit connection. So it's not like massive. Yeah. And I do understand, like you touched upon earlier too, there are areas still, the infrastructure totally like around the world isn't there for it to become fully mainstream. But there's countries, like Brazil and India that are just starving for games. We saw, Xbox Cloud Gaming launch in Brazil, and they had wait times. Like people had to have a queue like an hour before they can play their games because the servers were overloaded, because the hardware there is so expensive with inflation and things like that. So I really think expansion, hint, hint, if anybody's watching, is going to be the next key to focus on. Get your a wider audience there into those countries. Then once you get more people, you've already got your tools that are being streamlined. You've got your certification process that are being streamlined. You've got Stadia Pro revenue sharing, and bam, like you're sitting back with your feet up. But it's just going to take a while. Yeah. And I think really like Google thought maybe like it would be accepted faster than what it was. But again, we'll see in the future here. I think 5 to 7 years, and we'll be back. You'll be back on the show, and we'll be like, hey, remember when we talked a couple of years ago here about cloud gaming and things like that? So, yeah.
Hey, I just had a random thought. Stadia should go into streaming VR, because I've been looking at Vivi, who has clearly a lot of high-end hardware, a 3070 RTX and
bragging,
5 index. But one of the reasons the Oculus Quest, I think, did so much better than the tethered ones is because you're so much more free, right? Well, the problem with the Quest is it doesn't have the power of like a PC, like for the Vive or the PlayStation VR, but it has the advantage of it's portable. So if they just leaned into streaming VR, which I don't know what the bitrate would have to be for that, but then they could get away with kind of low-end hardware, right? Like put all the money in 5G, which hopefully 5G is going to help this. I know there's still some latency issues, but I can get like over a gigabit in my area sometimes 5G, which is faster than I can get at home.
I know,
and it's only 400 megabits, and then I'm out and about and I'm getting faster speeds on my cell phone. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, so,
exactly. Yeah, and if that's enough to stream VR, then imagine like basically a Chromecast in in VR goggles that you can stream VR. So anyway, I don't know. That's my thought for anyone from Stadia who's listening. Just take Stadia VR.
You hear that, Gracie?
Yeah. So Vivi has here. Ninja got this highlighted here. But Vivi saying some jobs at Stadia have hinted that they're looking at cloud VR.
Yeah.
So I think for me, if I'm sitting in the seat here, if I'm Phil with my nice red shoes on and got them all shined up here, for me, I would think our where we've got to, again, like we said, we've got the streamlined tools, the low change porting is coming out. It's going to make it even easier to bring games over. The certification process is easy. We got the revenue sharing. Then I think the next thing is going to be that country expansion.
It's all coming together.
Then I think from there, then we can do like hardware upgrades. 'Cause I know like a lot of people were asking about, hardware wise, like upgrading the hardware so that maybe it's on par with like a PlayStation 5 or a Series X or whatever. I think that will come, but maybe, just in a little while. They've got to get these other things out of the way, get all their ducks in a row, and then they can go, with that hardware upgrade once they've got everything together. I mean, that's just...
Well, the nice thing about it, though, is they can like go poof and upgrade everyone instantly. Like they don't have to talk people into buying their new platform and then have all kinds of supply chain issues, so no one can actually buy it, like the PlayStation 5. Remember how possible that was to get for a while?
And that's the hype. That's the hype of it, because with cloud, you don't need a console. You don't need to worry about not finding a PS5 because it's so hard to find, right? You don't have to worry about upgrading, like you said, because it's just going to happen eventually.
And storage too, right? Like, I mean, the big thing is the cost to expand on the Series X and the PS5s. You're looking at a couple $100 for an extra terabyte of data on there, not ever having to worry about storage. I love that. Like, I don't have to worry about for a game to update, or if I have enough space to save this or stuff like that. You know what? I just have the controller in my hand. I'm leaned back here playing and enjoying and immersed. I can remember like when Stadia launched in 2019 there, just like it was probably about the first 3 to 4 weeks of playing it. It was just like, oh my gosh, like I can't, like, there's nothing under here. I just have a controller. Like, where's the other thing? And then now it's just natural, right? It's like I get the controller, I pair the controller, select the game, and bam, we're going. And it's just so fun. I could play it on my phone. I could play it on the tablet. I could play it on a browser, on a computer. I could play it on the TV. Wherever I want to go, I can pretty much play it. And it just brings that vision of getting your game on as many screens as possible to fruition.
Yeah, that's true. For sure. Like myself, I just hate PC gaming just because I'm not a hardware guy. I just hate changing parts, pieces, and stuff like that. So that's why I've always been into console. But cloud is even more like a next step. I don't even need to worry about anything. Like I don't need to worry about fixing my consoles or anything. Like it works. If it doesn't, then it's my internet. Like it's nothing more complicated than that. So it's the conveniency of it. This is why it's so fun.
Yeah. Oh, I see Simpleton just asked if we're part of the load change porting pilot group, and the answer is no. This is the first I've heard about it, but I wish we were. So anyone from Stadia out there who's listening, well, I guess I could just hit them up. So
You could get on the call after this. You're like, I was just on Stadium Connect North, and they're talking about these low change porting tools. And they're like, oh yeah, awesome, we know John those guys here. There, yeah, John and Ninja, sure. But no, like we know of a few developers. I know Paratrope, who's be bringing Sky Climbers. They're developing Sky Climbers and coming to Stadia. Paratrope said that he tweeted out just this past week here that they've been in touch with their Stadia rep, and it's like, of course he couldn't say things, but he's just like a big smile on their face. And I know Vivi's in the chat there, so Vivi's also a mod on the official Stadia Discord. He did a Q&A on the Stadia Discord with Paratrope a couple of months ago. And, Paratrope was saying we asked about the low change porting tools, and he said, he was talking with his rep, and it looks like they're going to probably, since it's in beta testing right now, they're working out the bugs with a small select group, that they're going to start to slowly roll those tools out to more developers. He said probably at that point near the end of the year. So, so it looks like they just want to iron out bugs and then just start, getting it out there, because that would be great. Like, the less work it takes for you to bring your games to Stadia would be amazing. And it was just, it would make everybody happy, right? Like, you don't have to do as much work, and people on Stadia, we get more games. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So, you got some more.
So hold on, if you could, because I can't highlight here. Could you highlight what Vivi said, his last one here about organize an event? Do you see that there?
There you go. Yep.
So Vivi, we'll maybe we can put you in touch here with Voldi here. Vivi's asking, maybe sometime in the future, if you'd like to organize an event on the Stadia Discord, like a Q&A like this as well, or something, that would be great. Yeah. So if you don't mind, maybe we could put you in touch with Vivi after the show, and who knows what comes of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great.
Awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
All right, so yeah,
okay.
What an amazing interview! Thank you very much, Voldi, for coming in again. Me and John, we were pretty jittery about it, and I mean, it's exactly what we wanted. Just a down to earth conversation with you, and oh my gosh, it's awesome! Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun, and it's fun just hanging out and chatting with you guys too, because you guys clearly are very enthusiastic and also extremely knowledgeable about the gaming industry in general, and not just Stadia, but like everything we do.
And if you ever have any questions about Stadia, or if you need help in contact with someone, you have our emails now, so just feel free to reach us out, and we can help you out with that for sure.
Or any beta tester.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah, for sure, yeah. I'm okay with that.
Sure. Yeah. So let's go ahead before we end here. Let's go ahead and end the poll.
Right.
We've got Voldi here, the CEO, the founder of WayForward. So we're right at the horse's mouth here, right? Like we're right focused in here. He's the end all be all here of WayForward. We're gonna let him know. Not necessarily means that it's going to happen, but it's always good to put a bug in the ear. What game from WayForward would you like to see come to Stadia in the near future? And boy, this was pretty close.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, so we had 49 votes. River City Girls had 38%. Spidersaurus is 34%.
Interesting.
The Mummy Demastered 24%, and then Vitamin Connection at 2% there. So,
you know what's really great about that is that's exactly the order of probability of us actually releasing the game on Stadia.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Well, maybe not River City Girls 1, but River City Girls 2 is coming out. So it's fresh in development. The team's active on it. All we have to do is keep them on for a little bit longer after launch to come out with a Stadia version. So that one would be the easiest to do. It's in Oh wow, yeah. And then the second easiest one, and most likely, is Spidersaurus, which is coming out in a few weeks, or I think mid-July. Yeah, in a month. So, but not on Stadia yet. But that one's in our internal engine, which we've already ported to Stadia. Ooh. So that one would be the second easiest to get out, and second most likely. The Mummy was also Unity, but it was an older version of Unity, so we would have to upgrade it, but it wasn't that old. And then the hardest one, Vitamin Connection, which is probably good that it's only 2%. That one was really tough because it was made as like a love letter to the Switch, and I can't even imagine. We would have to redesign it to be playable on Stadia.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be weird, like the Stadia controller is basically your character. So
Oh yeah. So who knows? Maybe in the near future, you'll be back on the show. We'll be talking about, Mighty Switch Force Collection is getting ready to launch, or it's launched, or
I would love to have also. Was it Edward, the main Stadia porter? Is that his name?
He's he's one of them. I would say he's the most knowledgeable at this point.
Yeah.
So,
that would be cool, because as you can see, there's a lot of people in the chat that have that technical craving, right? That of the inners, like how do you find working on Stadia? Is there any challenges? Is it easy? Do you find, like, what do you think of their tools? How does this compare to? And I know you can't name specifically other specific platforms, but how does this compare to other platforms in retrospect and things like that? So that would definitely be awesome if he would ever be interested in coming on. You could come back on with him as well. I mean, the door is always open. whenever you would like to come back on. We would definitely love to have you here. And as Ninja said, just a big thank you for taking time out of your day on this Friday to come talk to us, to come talk to the Stadia community. We learned so much. And it's awesome, like I said, to be able to talk to someone of your caliber and the level of that you're at within the company. You know, like, we're not talking, as I mentioned before, we're not talking like to PR or to even like a community manager. Like, you're the real deal. And something like this, to even imagine to be able to have this opportunity 20 or 30 years ago, you would never fathom. But here we are, 2022, sitting here, you know, talking with you, and it's just amazing. So thank you. I know from myself, from Ninja, and the entire community and everybody in the chat there, is we really do appreciate you taking your time out.
Well, thank you again for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to being on your podcast again sometime.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. So I think with that, I don't know if I have control over the video here. So Ninja, I might need you to do that there.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll end the stream and everything. Yeah, John is having some kind of technical difficulties, but I'm not sure. Can you put the video on, because I'm not sure which video it is?
Okay,
but,
sure.
Yeah. So guys, thank you very much for coming in today with the interview. Very, very cool. I really can't wait to get Voldi back on the show, because it was amazing.
All righty. All right. With that, here. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, thanks. You too.